Hello, Mr. Chow. My name is Connor McClure, and this is my presentation on Griggs versus Duke Power Company. First off, I want to apologize for the quality of the video. I'm not a video major. I'm just shooting this on my laptop computer, so I'm going to do my best to make it look as professional as possible. First off, I want to start by giving you a little background for this case, if you want to turn to slide 1. So this case was argued on December 14th, 1970, and was decided March 8th, 1971. This was a case that African American employees brought against Duke Power Company. The African American employees felt that they were being discriminated against, and this was after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where racism was outlawed in companies. So 13 out of 14 of the African American employees at the company were part of the suit. Before the suit, or before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Duke Power Company was openly discriminating against African American employees. So once that was passed, they obviously couldn't do that anymore. So the company designed tests and rules to discriminate against African Americans, but more discreetly. If you'd like to turn to slide 2. So what Duke Power put in place to try to discriminate against African Americans, they made it so that anyone could be hired to the labor division, but to get out of that division were required either a high school diploma or they had to pass an intelligence test. And first of all, high school diploma for African Americans was far less common just because they're also discriminated against in schools. So they had less education and were already at a disadvantage because of that. And second of all, the intelligence test was just put in place basically to weed out the African Americans and showed no relation to being able to complete the tasks that were required. But they made these tests part of moving up in the company so that they could keep African American employees from getting out of the labor division. If you'd like to turn to slide 4, I'd like to talk a little bit about Title VII. That's what came out of this case. One of the major things, or sorry, not what came out of this case. This is the major part of the Civil Rights Act that was what was argued in this case. So what Title VII is it keeps employers from workplace harassment and discrimination against employees. So this was what was applied to this case because this was obvious harassment and discrimination of African American employees. So that's why it was started, was to try to keep discrimination out of the workplace, going along with the Civil Rights Act. So I'd like to turn to slide 5. Title VII relates because this is the part of the Civil Rights Act that strictly explains how racism is part of the workplace and how it should be prevented in the workplace. So it's important because the purpose of it is to try and keep it fair, keep a level playing field for all the different employees, no matter what their race or gender or anything is. And this affected the outcome because the original jury who sided with the employees said that it violated the Title VII Act because the tests were irrelevant to the task that was being asked for them to perform to move up in the company. So that was obvious discrimination because it was put in there just to try and weed out the African American employees and keep them from moving up in the company. If you'd like to turn to slide 6, the disparate impact is something that came out of because of this case. So it's a judicial theory that was developed in the United States. It allows challenges to employment if employees, What it is it basically is talking about when a group of employees are disproportionately affected negatively and different groups of employees, like different races or different genders. So what disparate impact is when someone is causing harm to an employee, whether it's harassment or discrimination, to one specific group of employees and not across the board, not equal harassment or discrimination. So the accusations that the employees brought against Duke Power were that these new rules, the new tests that were designed, that either having to pass an intelligence test or have a high school diploma, were something that African American employees were less likely to have or be able to pass. And the white employees were treated differently and usually hired into different departments, which didn't require them to test out of the labor department to get into that department, so they had more opportunities or had already gotten into the company and did not have to take the test to move on, which is disparate impact in the definition. So that is why the suit was brought to trial. And the defense was that Duke Power tried to show that the tests, or I'm sorry, not the defense, the employees were trying to argue was that the test did not directly correlate to employees being able to do their job correctly and timely. All it showed was that the tests were designed to discriminate against African American employees and to keep them from getting out of the labor department. The Caucasian employees got around the rules because they were hired directly into non-labor positions, which required no testing to move throughout the company. And also, the white employees that did have to take the tests or they needed that part to get out of the company most likely had the high school diploma more often than the African American employees. So the outcome, the original jury found Duke Power guilty and they ordered a payout, but then the Duke Power Company took it to the Court of Appeals, who overturned it because they said that Duke Power has the right to give tests inside their company for advancement opportunities, but they didn't say that Duke had to change the tests and they had to make tests that were relative to the positions and someone doing their job correctly. So because of that, the outcome changed after this case is that now companies have to give tests that correlate to the job and show and are non-discriminatory. They're equal across the board, regardless of what your race or gender or anything is. They have to give equal tests that relate to the job that they're asking you to perform. So that is the major thing that this case changed for the better. And this case relates to our class because it was one of the first major racism cases after the Civil Rights Act in business. It was a model for what still happens today in business law, where it's protecting people that don't have a loud enough voice on their own and keeping people from doing things like discrete racism, giving tests that have nothing to do with the position that they're asking you to do. So this case gave everybody a much more equal chance and it leveled the playing field a lot for it today, not all the way, but there's still times that there's still more work to do, but it helped move forward getting rid of racism in the workplace.